I want to talk about my Greyhound dog. And I got him around a month and a half ago, and he's just really awesome. His name is Chrome. And before, he used to be an ex racing dog. And like in the Florida area where they race sort of like around the track, like at Daytona. And so as they're racing, as they get older, as time goes by, they're too old to race, and so they just are killed and gotten rid of most of the time. But I decided to rescue mine, and he's so sweet, and he's just a sweet dog. And since I've had him, he's 4.5 years old. Since I've had him, he's just been pretty awesome. And I want to talk about some of the common myths that and misconceptions that come along with greyhounds. Myth number one: some people say they always say that greyhounds are just a lot of work and they're constantly running around all day and with no rest, and how they're extremely hyper or anxious and nervous, and that's just not true. Greyhounds are actually naturally lazy and laid back, and they sleep around 18 hours a day. So, say if you live in an apartment or something like that, it would be really good to have a greyhound because you could just take them to the dog park, and once they run around, they only run around for about 30 seconds, 45 seconds. Well, no, back when they were on the racetrack, they would only run for about 45 seconds once a week, and the rest of the time was just spent relaxing. And so when you take them to run, they get tired very quickly, and you can just take them home. And so they're perfect for apartment living. Myth number two is that greyhounds, people, or that they just don't get along with other animals, and how they always want to be alone and they're very independent. But really, greyhounds are social animals, and back when they were on the tracks, they were always around different people, different trainers, and a lot of people from the crowd, and they got along well. And even there were a lot of other animals around, and so sometimes if they were alone, they got a little nervous themselves. And the reason they aren't is because they're used to being around animals. So even cats are fine. I've seen some videos where the greyhounds are actually licking the cat. And so they're very social, and sometimes it doesn't work out that way, but for the most part, everything's fine with a little bit of training. Myth number three: that people just really don't like greyhounds, the fact that they race, and because they're not treated as pets. And sure, they're fed perfectly fine, and it's because when they're fed, they get stronger and they're able to race better. But they only live their life to race. They never get to play with toys. Some have never even seen stairs, so they don't even know how to walk upstairs, and it's hard for them to understand an environment that they don't know. And so growing up, they never experienced that. Another myth that I hear a lot is that greyhounds are just, or another concern is that greyhounds are too long and skinny and bony. And that's just how they're naturally born. And say, if they were naturally fat, they might die or they could get very sick. And so being skinny, it's natural for them. It helps them with their racing. And so just know that it's normal for them to be thin. And since they're so thin, they don't have a lot of body fat. Like my dog, we dress him in coats and winter coats because sometimes if we want to go play outside, he needs those clothes on so he doesn't get too cold. And it's just like a human, the same concept. You don't want them to freeze outside, so they wear clothes. Myth number five is that people think that greyhounds are just aggressive and mean, and because they see them on TV wearing those muzzles. And the muzzles aren't because they're aggressive, it's because when greyhounds race, they tend to bump heads with the other dogs. And so back when I first got my dog, there rule that they had to wear the muzzle at the dog park, because they also, like, whenever they were training, they would chase after the white rabbit, and the parks also had those. And so the muzzles are just so they don't accidentally butt heads or play too rough with the other dogs or other animals that are chasing the same rabbit around. And that's the reason for the muzzle.